Today we bring you Watering Hole with a nice match between Tim's here in the red trunks as Persia up against Tempires in the light blue as India. So we've got our second Celeste Civ versus Original Civ match of the day with a India versus Egypt match just prior. So Tempires is going for a really early barracks push. So this is a map with a lot of rush distance, even though it's pretty much a clear shoot straight to your opponent's base. There's no big lake that you can't traverse or big forest that you can't traverse. So I don't know if Tempires has played a huge amount since the gather rate increased back to the original values. He's mainly played during the period of gather rate reduction. Tim's is just looking to go straight towards H2, I think. And as long as his scout catches the early spears, he'll be able to just make sure he gets enough food early on here to get his age up and get off this hunt and just go straight towards the second town center. I think that might be his plan here. This strat that Tempires is going for is phenomenal on Oasis, and I think it was even viable on a lot of the bigger maps during the old gather rate. But I mean, spears for most civs train at about 10 to 12 seconds before changes to the barracks during the slowed down gather rate. So I don't know if this is going to be all that great of an opening here for Tempires. Tim's will be able to get going really quickly, get his second TC, and if he does anything other than go for blind Asabara harass behind it, you know, he gets ahead of Tempires, because Tempires is probably only going to hit once Tim's has really got the food for the age up and for handsaw. And from there, being pushed back to berries is kind of negligible, because you can just get your second TC here. It just covers the other hunt anyway. So being pushed off this starting hunt, you know, you sort of already bled it half dry. By then, you go straight on the second hunt anyway. So Tempires is aging up. He stopped spear production now, which, you know, in a way, kind of stops him from actually having the opportunity to prevent a second TC in this position. Because as long as Tim's pulls back here in time, and saying that Tempires, we've got 3 or 4 spears here, so he can get a kill pretty quickly. It doesn't look like Tim's has really panicked at all. He's got a little bit of food in the bank, so he probably just wants to go straight back for a bit of food off the berries, and then set up the hunt again. So he's overgathering a bit of stone here, so probably just trying to not lose the scout. He's gonna have to get the scout out of here quickly though. So he's gonna go for the range, be able to take a few pot shots at these spears, really prevent them from stopping his wood gathering. But the thing is, if he had have not gone for the range here, he'd probably been able to go for the deer anyway. I mean, for the second TC anyway. So I think I have a little bit of stone. The Tempires, I'm going to just back off for now. I mean, he sort of zoned him off the hunts already, but it is helpful to just keep an eye on both of them. Oh no, he is going to turn around and get a little bit closer to that other hunt. So that's a good idea, because Tim's is looking to go for the second TC in a bit of a greedy spot, I think. If you can keep it here inside your own TC range, like, he can't really interrupt it. Like, once you got it more than about 20 or 30% done, unless he's got like 14 Spara or something, he can't really take it down. You can try and kill your villagers, but the thing is, you just sort of play a bit of a micro game, kill off his units, just make sure you're continuing your own build production, and then just start, you know, building it a little bit later, knowing that because he's sacrificed all those resources, his second TC is going to be delayed anyway. So Tempires has overgathered a bit of food here, so neither players played this perfectly, but the overall build, well, builds that they're going for, There's not really anything wrong with them. They're doing all the right things. It's just a little bit sloppy in terms of the gathering behind it. Although Tim doesn't want to overextend here, so this is good. He's going to get a couple of the bows, the spears, pretty much for free there with his bows. So that's everything he wanted out of that. The Tempires sticking around a tad too long there. And being a little bit unlucky to not catch this, because I mean, Tim's was going for it just outside of TC range. If the spears were over here still, they actually would be able to see that just as it goes up and be able to interrupt it. You know, kill off a villager or two before there's that much health on this, you can't, you know, stop it. And because it's outside of TC range or on the very edge, it's really hard to try and just micro through it. When it's, you know, when it's right here, then they've got to cover this distance. He's got to keep something parked here. He's got to try and park things everywhere to stop you actually gathering. Tempires overgathering on the food a little bit, but he's already able to produce gatherer elephants, which are more efficient than the villagers. So that'll be great for his economy. We've got stables production behind the barracks. So Tim's going for a stables of his own, but he is going to want to add a barracks of his own to be able to deal with Taranga. Both our players, things have stabilized a bit. So we've got 27 villages to 22. Tim's is actually well up on the vill count at the moment. It is only a small gap in terms of the number of villages, but at this stage of the game, that's a relatively big gap. Though he needs to maintain double villager production here instead of just training them all out of one town centre. Tempires, and meanwhile, I'm going to try and close that vill gap a little bit. He's just producing out of both TCs right now. Does have Taranga. Oh, well, 1-1-1 production. So 1 stables, 1 range, 1 barracks. I've only got stables and range here so far for Tim. So he is going to want to potentially pull some villagers off gold and food momentarily. Get a little bit more wood. Get a barracks. And then think about even getting a second barracks or a second range. And try and force that up pretty quickly. Tempires is going to try and tickle his opponent with a little force here. But Tim's is going to try and actually house wall this side of his town centre, which is probably a good idea at this stage. Although in saying that, eventually this would be a really good side to market. All he needs to do is chop through a couple of trees here. Actually, potentially even just mark it here. It's quite a big map. Quite a distance back to that first TC. And I mean, if he puts the third TC right in the corner here, yeah, you could probably even just mark it over here. But that is going to prevent Taranga from spewing into his base if he's also getting hit over this side, because I imagine he's going to probably put his third town center over here, control that berries, that gold, and wood line there. There is some stone over here as well, so it's everything he needs. So Tempires, he did spear us, so it has allowed him to be a bit more free with his town centers. And I mean, this is a really open side of his base, so having this over here, it helps him compact it up against the wood line there. Just makes raiding a little bit harder. There's an Asabara out in the map, but Tempire is already finishing a ranged armor upgrade. Tim's going for age 3. Tim's just up on population here at the moment, so he is getting the units out a little bit quicker. I mean, Persia does have a particularly easy time with that in age 2 whenever they are going for bowmen. And this could be a nice couple of villager kills, but Tim's does garrison. And so Tempires is going to have to retreat now, but perhaps overextending a little bit. Thank you for the follow. A few more bowmen are going to get picked off here, so this is probably good for Chims to just keep chasing here. Really quite rough for Tempires, because if his opponent does, you know, does he turn and fight and then have to fight against eventually that whole army again? Or does he sort of just take the losses for what they are and then try and double down on bowman production to catch back up? Tempires going to age 3 now. Tim's getting that temper. And losing that house, he did end up staying housed through all that quite a bit there. But does have a villager lead still. Both our players did get housed and didn't really do much about it while that fight was going on. But ultimately, Tim's did walk away with a few more kills there, but now Tempires bouncing back with a little bit better production here. And this is not going to be the ideal target at the moment with that few units. So the dock is going to survive, and all these Asabara, or the 2 Asabara and the spear, are going to fall for pretty much for free. It's not great for Tim's. He does have that age 3, but he is having to play a little bit of catch up in the upgrades department. So we've got melee damage and ranged armor for Tempires, and we only have melee damage so far for Tim's. He is still getting upgrades. Both players still are. Tempires just hitting age 3 now. Tim's doesn't have that age 3 town setting yet, but he's been in age 3 for a little bit now, and he has Spear Champ. Although I think Bow Champ is probably the most ideal upgrade, considering that's the largest part of his army at the moment. So very safe third town center for Tempires, and Tim's isn't even going to know it's gone up just yet. But at the same time, he can probably assume that his opponent will be getting it at some point fairly early into age 3. Still, it doesn't really secure any resources for Tempires at this stage. Like, he is eventually going to want to be out here. But being tucked away into the corner like that, I suppose he could set up for a market over near this gold mine. Tim's pushing out here, but he needs to pick up this production a little bit. Get a few more gatherers on the food here, because he's really starting to run out of that at the moment. And even just make sure he's still making a lot of bowmen. Because Tempires hasn't got a massive army himself, but Tim's just trying to push out here, and he needs to just make sure he's got every advantage he can have to do so. There's a lot of Asabara here. Although the Taranga able to get straight on top of the bowman, because there's not a great number of spears left for our Persia player. But Tempire is eventually retreating here. This is going to mean his fishing gets interrupted now. So Tim's is doing a great job here to push out now. Although I think it was a little risky, because he didn't have a huge amount in production for a bit there. He went into that with a little bit less population, and Tempires retreating. Starting to get some shrines here, investing in that Indian unique technology. I don't think he's got a monastery yet though, and that's a building I think players don't want to neglect. I mean, I personally do it. I know Madlib does it sometimes. But I feel like the shrine, I know it generates your resources, but it takes a minute and a half, no, 2.5 minutes to pay off, so you know, the temple, I know there's a bit of a wait for it to pay off as well, but I feel like its impacts are massive. You get things like faster training economy units or researching upgrades, and the front line here for Tim's is just outlasting the front line for Tempires, meaning he's going to have to retreat, but Tim's doesn't want his army to get split up, because if Tempires actually micros that, he'll actually be able to clean up his opponent's front line in response. A few man-at-archers in the mix here for Tim's as well. He's still struggling for that food eco. He really needs to start gathering more food, quit gathering so much wood, or just start farm production at the moment. So he is going to go for farms here. But Tempires, in the meanwhile, massed up a really nice force here to 145 pop. A little bit better recovery macro here. But it's still no front line here. Only half of Tim's army's taking the fight. There we go, the whole thing is now chasing Tempires. Another few bowmen being picked off. Asabara might be able to get another couple of bowmen as well. Tempires isn't watching, he's trying to also transition to farms here. Tims does eventually save that Asabara before showing off a little bit there. To 14 food gatherers now, so it's a little bit more healthy, but I think he could still transfer a couple more wood gatherers to food here. Does have all of his age 2 upgrades, and Tempires also has all of his age 2 upgrades. He's gonna want to get that temple sometime soon, and he's gonna transition to elephant archers here. It's more area damage, so that would be quite handy against this Persian army with a lot of little units, a lot of 1 population units. It's always a good time to bring out area damage, to bring out range damage, to bring out elephant units, because they're big health pools. Triangle will be able to clean up individual units really quickly, particularly these mounted archers. Tims is going to want to be careful here. Tempires is going to want to get in and get out here. If he can interrupt some gathering, clean up a couple more mounted archers like that, then that's ideal, but he doesn't want to lose these guys either. He is up in terms of army population, and if he can keep that lead, I think he can then look at trying to push out once he gets to 180 pop. Because he'll be able to add the last couple of elephants in his composition here. Tims is going to be able to clean up these Asabara, these Taranga, so he did delay a bit of gathering there, but Tempire is now going to invest in the Sacred Cow, so these are slowly going to just accrue him a little bit of gold. The longer the game goes on, the further he's going to get ahead out of that, and he does have a bit of a army lead, so 74 to 67 in terms of the eco pop as well. So we've got some age 3 upgrades for both our players. Tims has got a bit more in the bank for each resource now, and just needs to make sure he maintains production. Tempires, in the meanwhile, is quite close to that 180 pop mark, so this is great for him. He's got all the army he needs right now. Wants to work towards age 4 perhaps, or start getting some fortresses up around the map, give himself some good map control. The monastery, finally. He's got all 3 shrines now. And now Tims is going to struggle for resources out in the map. So he's going to have to try and guard some of these gold mines, get some fortresses up, I think, or start on a market and start walling himself in. Tempires looking really solid here with this army. There isn't any front line left for it. A lot of units just idle over here now, coming in, and Tim's reinforcements are just suiciding into the enemy there. But Tims needs to try and mass up an army here rather than just letting all these guys stream out the map here, because they're just getting picked off here. Tempires. It's just going to be able to keep overwhelming them up, unless he faces big numbers himself. All these Asabara, quite expensive. And I thought Tims might have had that for a sec there, or at least, you know, been able to turn that around with that push, but the range units all held on there for Tempires, and Tim's going to be able to mass up an army now. He's still just streaming out units, and this is not great. He wants his opponent to muck around killing buildings, so he can actually just build an army. Potentially even send 1 or 2 cavalry units just to tie up a bit of attention. Otherwise get everything together. Not just constantly bleed out units. Because they're just fighting at a huge disadvantage with this many of his opponent's units on top of their production. And Tempires really just needs to get a bit of stone and a bit more gold, and he can go to age 4 here, finishing off the last of his age 3 upgrades. And getting his farming upgrades for India so he can fit 3 units on each farm, on each plantation. He's even getting all of his techs from his monastery, so all of his choose one technologies. GG. And Tempires takes the game there, winning on as India. So a few of those fights seem to go Tim's way. But ultimately Tempires, with the experience, able to mount a very impressive push there. A good mix of ranged units, some blade chariots, elephant archers and bowmen all in the mix there.